Hello, welcome, and merry meet. I'm RowanRavenwolf, and welcome to Witchy Book Club. We are doing Witchy Book Club of The Anatomy of the Spirit by Myss. And I'm going to take just a quick second here to share. So if anybody wants to join tonight, feel free to join. So, Witchy Book Club. So we have been reading Anatomy of the Spirit by Myss. We'll have it done by the last Sunday in May, I believe. Maybe the first Sunday in June. But we are doing a chapter a week. Sorry, I was on with a friend for a while, so my voice is kind of gone already. So we're doing a chapter a week, and I'm very excited. Tonight we are doing the part 2, chapter 4, and it is the heart chakra. So in this chapter, it's she calls it the 4th chakra, emotional power. And so we have been exploring all the chakras. So for those that are new and don't know, I'm going to hold up the book again. So in the Anatomy of Spirit, Myss is actually a medical intuitive. So she wrote this book in the late 90s, well, 96, so I guess mid-90s. So in 1996, she wrote this after she'd been a medical intuitive, and she does give that background in the beginning. And she discovered a lot of our issues really stem from spiritual and mental issues that actually manifest physically. And so that's really important for us to know and understand. So she's kind of breaking it down by, and she did do a lot of research. So she's using the Hindu chakras, she's using the Kabbalah tree of life, and then she's also using the 7 sacraments. So with the 7 sacraments, I'll be honest, I don't see a lot of how the 7 sacraments play their part in here. So if anybody feels free to add, totally feel free to add because, yeah, like I think there's something different from Christianity that could have been used. So welcome, Bren.
Error.
So we're doing tonight's the heart chakra.
What a lovely way to end off the Venus week.
Right? I mean, I could not have planned this better, and I didn't even plan it. I just randomly picked the book, and so they fell in line with each other.
I can't wait for Saturn this Thursday. Oh boy. I'm going to have so much fun with them, as I usually do.
So our spiritual panel on Thursday night is going to be on the planet Saturn and how to use it magically and astrologically. So Bren is literally our Vedic expert on Vedic astrology. So I'll throw out the tropical or Western astrology, but Bren is definitely our expert. So next week will actually be our throat chakra.
Well, actually, yeah, that I could see also, because for Saturn, that's interesting. Because Saturn can be the root, because it's the physical, tangible 3D, the foundation, but it's also the ability to, let's see here, it could even also apply to the throat too, because if you're not taking time to like control, you can just word salad all over the place.
Yeah. So, if anybody's read the chapter 4 in Anatomy of the Spirit, I'm going to just hold that up. I'll hold it up a couple times by Myss. We're really talking about the heart chakra. And, it actually really got me thinking about a lot of things in my life that I'm like, oh, and it's funny because when I first read the book, I was still so traumatized by like something that was traumatic that was going on in my life. The whole book just went over my head. Like I got a little bit out of it, but when I read it in 2019, I got a lot more. And now I'm like looking at it and I'm like, wow, like the more we grow spiritually, the more we learn, even if it's something that we've read before. So I'm going to just kind of go through a little bit and then I'll just say, hey, Bren, you want to add anything here? So, So, the fourth chakra, she literally says the fourth chakra is the central powerhouse of human energy system. And let's think about this, right? Our fourth chakra is our heart. What does our heart do? It pumps blood, right? So, and when we're running, it's going to pump our blood a little faster. We're going to breathe a little faster. It literally is our physical energy, our spiritual energy, and our mental energy. Brent, I don't know if you want to add anything about that right now.
Yes, and it's with the heart. Now, yes, it does also, well, because it being the, well, pretty much it's where the life is able to flow. It's where you have, of course, like the blood, the hemo stuff, but it's the one that is also imbued with electricity. It's able to give that jolt to keep itself flowing, and it's always on a rhythm. So in a way, it's the when it pumps, it's also sending out this energetic vibration because boom, 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 boom. That's like an energetic vibration, and when that makes contact with, like, say, another person, if it's on that equal frame, they're like, "Oh, you're playing the same beat as I am." If that kind of like ties in a cutesy way.
Yeah, it does tie in a cutesy way. So we all have our heart. Like, feel your heart beating, you know? It's always, I don't know. I find it fun. I also like watch it on my watch, like when it gets higher, if I'm like, oh, okay, I need to get up and move. I'm kind of stagnant right now. But so she talks about that. So she talks about the location being the center of our chest. The energy connection to the physical body. She talks about the heart, the circulatory system, ribs, our thymus gland, our lungs, our shoulders, our arms, our hands, and our diaphragm. Our energy connection is this chakra resonates with our emotional perceptions. So this is our love, our compassion, our confidence, our hope, our despair, hate, envy, and fear. The symbolic perceptual conception, she puts this as her quote is, let go and let God. So I'm going to say, let go and let your higher power. Because I know some of us here in the spiritual community may believe in a goddess and a god, or may not even, they may just believe in a higher power. So, and if you want to substitute let go and let fill in the blank, that's like a great way to do it. Let's see. Oh, so I did like this. I'm going to actually read this verbatim from the book. In order to achieve the inner peace, we have to embrace the healing energy of forgiveness and release our lesser need for human self-determined justice. All right, Bren, I definitely want to talk about this.
Yes.
Yes, because forgiveness is a topic. Like Alien T had this maybe a month or maybe 2 months ago. It was this year for sure. Forgiveness. Whoa, right? Like that's
Mhm.
heavy. What are your thoughts and feelings on it? Because I think this is like a really important topic, forgiveness.
So forgiveness. At the core of it all, it is up to the individual to decide if forgiveness is to be given or not. Should it be given? I can't say. But one thing's for sure, being forced and pushed to forgive while there's something feeling like this isn't the right thing to do, that is probably one of the biggest and, if not most, damaging ways to harm the self. Because you're now in a way betraying yourself. You're lying to yourself saying, no, I don't feel this way. But what you're doing is you're rejecting your true feelings and self. And when you start doing that, you you cripple yourself. So forgiveness ultimately is solely up to the discretion of the person that's having to make that choice. I can't say what is right or wrong. That's for the person to decide.
Yes. And so I think this was the hard thing because I was thinking back and I remember when I was going through a really hard time. Something horrible happened to our family, my children, myself. And I was like, you know what? I really have never forgiven the person, but I forgave myself for my role and I forgave myself for feeling guilty. So quite frankly, I think the interesting part that she says is the human need for self-determined justice. I think a lot of times when someone does something that hurts us, we do have a need for justice. Like someone hurts us, like online, we expect them to apologize, right? Well, our expectations here, their expectations here, and they don't care. You know, and they probably, if you even did the same thing to them, it probably wouldn't even hurt them, right? So truly, I think it's more, how do we handle these situations? Do we need to forgive these people?
Now, that even also now digs into another layer. If, like, for example, like what was said, the self-determined justice. Now, the way that I look at that, self-determined, well, because depending on what is being deemed like self-determined, like if this individual that got harmed, like say if somebody came in and just stepped on their flower bed for no justified reason, just because they wanted a hissy fit. Now, if that individual's who own that flower garden comes out and tells them, "Okay, you're going to have to fix all this, dig up the plants, and then plant new ones." In a way, yeah, that's somewhat the concept of if you have the capacity to output harm, you have the capacity to repair the harm. And if the person doesn't, like for example, well, I don't want to do it. Okay, that shows your character. And but the because when you have also somebody who made a genuine mistake and they put out the effort to really try to correct that mistake, if they show the signs and they show that sincerity, that also can be somewhat different. But most of the time in this lovely modern day, people just don't care. They just do what they deem fit, and if it benefits them, they'll have at it. Which is, yeah, no.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part, because a lot of times when people do something, sometimes it's as simple as I just want them to apologize, and they're not going to. You know, a lot of times people, and people are scared to say, I made a mistake. Like that's what makes, as we are on our spiritual path, regardless of if you follow a specific spiritual path or a specific religion, as we are growing and we learn to forgive ourselves, we become better people. And then we can understand. And actually, it's odd enough. So I was on the phone for 2 hours with a friend I haven't talked to in about a year. And he thought I was mad at him. And both of us just kind of stopped talking. And it was just like we got busy with our everyday life. I'm like, no, I'm not mad at you. So we had a situation that we were in a group with people, and someone new to our group came in and was extremely disrespectful to multiple people in the group. Well, this person to me was a narcissist and had energy I did not want to be around. And I just said, you know what, I can't be around that person. So I just stopped going. And so I kept in touch with my friend, and then we lost touch for a while. And he literally messaged me earlier this week and said, I really didn't want things to go this way. I hope we can still be friends. I'm like, you had no fault in this. As a matter of fact, the narcissist, I'm just going to call the person, was like, would not let people speak and was trying to take over everything. And they had barely joined. And we voted in like a president, a vice president, and a secretary. So he was nowhere in any authority. And was extremely, and I was like, no, like he was disrespectful to you and disrespectful to me, but I value my self-worth So I was like, I want nothing to do with this guy, so I'm not going anymore. And come to find out, he's actually yelled at people, the narcissist has. And so now he was actually uninvited. I was like, oh, okay. So, like, he's not going to apologize, right? But see, the people who care apologized. So my friend was like, I've been a bad friend. I'm like, no, you haven't. I made the decision that I could not be around this narcissist because he was unhealthy for me. Yes, I could have yelled at him. I could have told him off, but that's not my way. My way is let it go. Like, I love that song from the movie Frozen, Let It Go. But how it really coordinates with tonight. Like, I had enough respect for myself to not put myself in a situation where someone who means nothing to me could abuse me and make me feel bad. I forgive and love myself enough that I was able to say, you know what, this isn't a healthy situation. I'm letting it go and I'm walking away. So I think that's one thing we have to try, and we're each going to do it our own different way. Some of us may feel like, well, no, I'm going to stick up for myself and yell and scream. I don't like confrontation, so that's not me. I just go, you know what? You can either ask or walk away. And that's kind of my thing is walk away. I mean, I had somebody recently who even attacked me here on TikTok. And it was inappropriate. And I was like, you know what? That person means nothing to me. So, and it's the first person I've ever blocked on TikTok. But I mean, this is I have enough self-respect. And I think that's what forgiveness is most important, at least in my opinion. Forgive yourself. Acknowledge when you do something wrong. I mean, I'm the first, when I screw something up. I mean, I remember even being a kid. My friend was like, why did you do that? I hit my dad's truck with my grandma's car.
Don't!
Yes. My grandpa was fixing my car, so my grandma said, I don't need to go anywhere for a couple of days. You can take my car while grandpa fixes your car. And I was backing out of the driveway, and the passenger side corner of my grandma's Cadillac. All right.
Okay.
And it was a new Cadillac. I remember that. Hit my dad's truck. And my dad's truck was an old beater. So the truck didn't matter. The Cadillac mattered. And I remember I went in, and I'm like, Dad. And he was like, what? I'm like, I got to call Grandma. And he's like, why? I'm like, I just hit your truck with Grandma's car. And it wasn't even like, Dad, I feel bad I hit your truck. Because, again, my dad's car was his truck was old. But, my dad looked at me and he goes, I'm proud of you. Like, I just hit 2 vehicles. And he was proud of me because I confessed. And I was like, I did this. I caused this damage. That's the most important thing. If we do something wrong, we admit it and forgive ourselves with grace. Just make amends. I paid for the damage. It sucked because I'd been saving my money to get a better car, and it had to pay to fix the Cadillac. So, lesson learned. Don't. And actually, after that, I never drove my grandma's car because she always had a Cadillac, and I was like, I'm not driving your Cadillac. So I was like, no. But if we forgive ourselves, we show grace, and we take accountability with our actions, that makes us a better person. So like she said, that quote, let go and let God. So let go and let your higher power. But it's hard getting there. I don't know, Brent, if you want to add anything right now.
Yes. Well, I'm also one of those people that, whenever I make a whoopsie, I'm like, yep, I was the doofus who did it. Yep, that was me. Oops. But then here's another from my own personal experience. And now this kind of goes into the concept of reneging. When you're being taught how if something happened or a mistake was made or if anything, to just come forward and then tell what's going on and be honest about it. Good. Okay. So whenever I did that, every time when I said the truth has always been well, most of the time, more times than not, it was responded with the extreme shame, the screaming, yelling, and then just being insulted with all these names. And after a while, that kind of puts you in a position where it's like,
Why do
what's that word called? Um, what is that called? Cognitive dissonance, where you think, but you told me to do this, and now you're table flipping.
Yeah.
So it's now pushing me to the idea of like, so being truthful results me getting pushed down, yet you told me to do that, and what? So that's also another part where, at least for me, I had to really come to terms and figure out that, well, in terms of like being able to survive, because being hypersensitive that I am, too much of that cripples me. So I had to resort to essentially having to, pretty much, this is going to sound so odd, say what had to be said so that way the hissy fits wouldn't happen. Which is just, I don't like that. And furthermore, being told and being crippled because of somebody saying, just do this, that's all I ask. Okay, does that. What the heck? Like,
And you know what? That's what's really hard. That's why, like, when I had told my friend I'd hit my grandma's Cadillac with my dad's car, she's like, why did you go say something to your dad? Honestly, I was like, my grandma, she was like, accidents happen. And actually, I think because it was like 6:30 in the morning, my dad still wasn't awake. But if my dad had been awake, I think I would have gotten the same reaction you were just talking about, Bren.
mm-hmm.
It is hard to overcome that.
Yeah.
It is really hard to overcome that. And I know that happens to a lot of us. Like, even as adults, I mean, I've worked places where I've had supervisors or managers who have been like that, and it's like, okay, because we're all human, like, and we are going to make mistakes.
Yep.
But when we are punished for saying, hey, I made this mistake, I want to make it right, that makes it really hard, because then it's like, why bother? Why bother taking the higher road? And so we do have to learn to, like, unfortunately, there are people out there that are just so mean that they make it really difficult. And that's why I think, for me, with forgiveness and with this whole thing, it's forgive ourselves. And know that we can't change anybody. People who teach and throw shame and guilt on you are unhealthy. So if you're in a work environment like that, maybe it's time to find another place to work, because let's face it, a lot of times those people who are in those positions, they're there for a reason. Like, I told my husband, I'm not mean enough to be in corporate America. I told my husband that. I was like, I'm just not a mean person. So, like, so, and
I don't think I would do well in that environment. Actually, in a way, I did do well in that. Well, in a retail environment, I did very well because I was so hyper protective of all the people I oversaw, and I already knew upper management didn't like it, and they didn't like when I told them, "No, I'm not going to write up this person. If you want to do it, you can do it, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make my workers' morale go down. If you want to do it, go ahead, but I'm not going to do it." Yeah, they didn't like it that much. But
yeah, and see, that's just it, is when we stick up for people, sometimes that makes it really hard. But you know what? I would rather stick up for people than be the mean person. I would rather stick up for somebody and know that it leaves them with a warm heart and know that somebody appreciates them than be the one that makes them go home in tears.
Yep. And and actually that does remind me, because what's interesting too is, although the environment that I was raised in, and having it with that theme of cognitive dissonance, let's see, probably the best example has got to be the many shenanigan times, with all love, but with a lot of a headache, was when my significant other did something that was a big whoops, and the first the first time that it happened, any kind of big whoops, all that I told him is that, okay, if anything happens, 99.99% of the time, I'm going to be more concerned if you're okay and that you're safe, and that I'm going to prioritize to make sure that that is the case because I'm more worried about you than whatever else happened. Then from there, worry about that next. The times where he has said that, every time, all I respond with is, I'm not mad at all. You did exactly what I told you. And I leave it at that. And some of them were quite kind of like, whoa, like almost being taken to someplace far, far away on a moment's notice, but got him out of that situation. And just, that was what I told him. You did exactly what I told you to. I'm not even upset.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's really important. I think like one of, as we talk about that, my daughter, she called me really upset one day and was just in tears. And she was a junior in high school at the time. No, wait, she was a sophomore in high school. There was a boy at her high school, and he was a problem. He essayed and harassed the girls quite frequently. And he did ask my daughter to prom, and my daughter declined. Now, my daughter wasn't dating anybody at the time, but wasn't interested in dating. She was not. She wanted to have her book. She was just a book girl, book geek, and I loved it. It was nice. I didn't have to worry about a boy like partner or anything. Well, I did in this situation. So this guy was very mad that she had rejected him, and she was standing outside. It was the tail end of the school day. She was talking with one of her friends. He came over, called her a couple things. My daughter did swear back at him because she has learned to stick up for herself. He slapped her across the face. Yeah. He was a junior. She was a sophomore. She calls me crying, starts telling me this, okay? Now, so she tells me what he had called her, which was inappropriate. She said the F-bomb. You know, she said F-bomb off. And slapped her. And I was like, oh, no. And I'm like, he's like, well, Mom, I did swear, and like this school had a rule that you're not supposed to swear. Well, he broke the rule first, right? And he said, yeah, like words that I know TikTok would like be like, red flag, turn this off. So I immediately called. So how they had it is they have like the principal, and then there's vice principals, and they take different letters of the alphabet. Well, her vice principal was like, well, she earned it. I was like,
heck no.
Excuse me?
That made me livid.
I remember my coworker, because I'm on the phone. I'm like, excuse me? And my coworker, who was at the time my work husband, was like, oh, because he had not seen me that upset. And he knew something had upset me, and I didn't tell him what was going on. So I get off the phone. I'm like, that many explicitives coming out of my mouth because Mama Bear is coming out, and I'm a 40-minute drive away from my daughter right now. And my daughter's on the school bus going home, but I'm livid. And my coworker, who at the time we were both single, we joked around that I was his work wife. He was my work husband. He's like, well, what you need to do? I'm like, oh, hell no. I'm like, I call, the principal was not available. I said, well, he needs to be available and drop everything for me. He's in a meeting, ma'am. Not acceptable. I'll just call the superintendent. So I call the superintendent office. While I'm on hold for the superintendent, I'm writing an email to the principal and the superintendent. And I literally put in there, do I need to get the Secretary of Education for the state of Illinois involved? Literally, this is in my email, right? Mama
Beautiful,
Bear
good.
coming out. So the superintendent gets on the phone. Yeah. Yes. So I'm an Aries, and when you make me mad, it's Mount Vesuvius. And so this kid was getting Mount Vesuvius. You do not slap my child. The superintendent's like, oh, ma'am. And I'm like, and that vice principal, I'm like, he is not going to be my daughter's report to. I'm like, he will be removed immediately. Like they ended up giving her someone else. So I even said, like, so I had to take off the next day to go in and talk to the superintendent and the principal because I escalated it fast.
Good.
And I'm like, my daughter understands that she did say a word that is against school rules and she will take her punishment. But the slapping is not appropriate. Now, there were 2 weeks left of school. They punished my daughter did not get punished. She was actually, because she was like a student on all these AP classes. She was like always the one that like, oh, Dean's List, you know. They did give her a new principal, vice principal to report to. The principal that gave me lip got in trouble. They're like, we will be talking to him and it will be taken care of. I did find out through the grapevine because I had a friend on the school board. He got in big trouble. Like, it wasn't little trouble. He got in big trouble.
Good.
The kid, they're like, the kid is being punished. This was not his first offense. Now, I knew this was not this kid's first offense because most of us moms that had girls knew this kid because he was, I mean, when I say essay, I mean, he was grabbing girls. I mean, it was just he very, very inappropriate. Now, he had a younger brother, and I also knew the mother and the father. Now, some people you can go to and talk to them and say, hey, this happened. These parents, let's put it this way, the father had been in and out of jail for multiple offenses, and the wife thought it was funny. And some of these offenses were not okay.
Funny?
Yeah, like this mother would volunteer. And so I was a volunteer mom too. And so she'd be like, oh, my husband's in jail for this. And all, you know, and she's laughing about it. And we're all like, that's not funny. Like, because like the last time I had known that he had been in jail, it was for SA. Like, he grabbed somebody at work. And he was in jail for it because he had like a laundry list. I mean, literally, he didn't get to go on their honeymoon. And I knew too much because like when we were at volunteer things, she would tell us all this stuff. And we're like, why are you telling us your dirty laundry? Like, you should be ashamed. Like, I mean, like, this is stuff you shouldn't be talking about, you know? So, yeah, we knew a lot. So I knew I couldn't go talk to the parents because they would have encouraged the behavior. Mm-hmm. So, they're like, he's already on another, so all they said is he's on another punishment. So his punishment for her will be the beginning of his senior year. We didn't know what it was. Oh, he was suspended from school the first 3 months for smacking my daughter.
Oh, I would have made it much worse.
The only reason I found out was because because the younger son was was in a club with my other daughter. And the mom volunteered and she goes, yeah, my son. And like, it didn't even click that it was my daughter that he had smacked. And she's like, yeah, he smacked a girl at the tail end of the school year after he'd already essayed another girl and was already on he was on morning and after school detention for that. And this was like the icing on the cake. So they gave him 3 months suspension. And she goes, it really sucks for his senior year because he's probably going to have to go to summer school, which I did find out he did go to summer school. That's on him. You know, he's probably still out there doing it. Did he ever apologize? No. Did the mother, the mother thought it was like, I'm sitting there and everybody knew who he had smacked. And she's sitting there and we're all like, are you what is wrong with you? So it was really, really sad situation. So people like that, we just need to avoid. Like after that, my daughter, literally, my daughter said, I can get a restraining order against you.
Yeah. I would have.
Yeah. It was the second time he had done something, but the first time it was just all verbal. Mm-hmm. And I did file a police report the first time because it was in the summer. But yeah, we could have actually gotten a restraining order against him. Then he wouldn't have even been able to go to the school. Maybe I should have done that. But so we do come out when we're mama bears, but not everybody is going to defend you. You know, unfortunately, when people do things wrong, like that kid never apologized to my daughter. Never. The parents thought it was okay. So they don't understand, like, what they did was wrong, obviously. They clearly have, like, issues, whatever they are. Would my daughter have liked an apology? Yeah, she really would have. Because it wasn't okay. What he did was not okay. But yeah, so like that comes along the lines of forgiveness and self-determined justice. Yeah, my daughter did get some justice that day, and yeah, I probably should have. I probably should have gotten her. He actually avoided her like the plague because she said, "I will get a restraining order if you come near me." So his last year at that school, my daughter still had 2 years left. He did not dare go near her.
And I mean, well, because even at that, that's kind of also like the beauty of well, because in that kind of regard, how he acted to instigate in the first place, well, to make it as like so pinned against the wall possible, well, he still made that choice to act and respond that way.
Yes.
And not knowing if he knew better or not, well, sorry, that's not an excuse. He still did it.
Yes. And when you're a junior in high school, you should know better. I mean, I could see like an elementary kid maybe not knowing, like a third grader, but when you're in 11th grade, you should know better.
Yeah. Well, even then too, it's like going or even going at somebody with because of someone turning you down for not wanting to go to a dance with you or not wanting to go interact with you, and then having a hissy fit. Then you go to them saying vulgarity, and then you make the choice to then swing at them. Well, that don't know what else to say, but still did it.
Mm-hmm.
Made the choice, so drop the anvil on them.
Exactly. Well, and then the other thing is that I've known situations because I have a friend who had her daughter had almost the same situation, and she went mama bear out too. Her daughter still to this day is single and wants nothing to do with boys. And it's like, and she liked boys up until that point. And I'm like, well, maybe she'll like girls, or maybe she's just content. But this is where damage can come that damages our heart chakra too. And so like if you have to put up with something like this on your own and you don't have someone there to back you up, you have to learn. And this is like a horrible thing. We have to learn to stick up for ourselves. And we have to learn how to heal ourselves. And I think that's where we're going to get a lot from this chapter with our heart chakra. It's more than just forgiveness. Like we have to have grace for ourselves and we have to forgive ourselves. We can't say, how could I have changed that situation? We can't change the situation. All right. So I'm going to go on. So the Seraphat and the sacrament connection corresponds. The Seraphat from the Kabbalah Tree of Life is Terefet. And this is the sacrament of marriage. So she says the archetype of marriage represents first and foremost a bonds with oneself and the internal union of self and soul. So that does help because like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I have friends who, I'm older. I have friends who've never been married and have no intention of ever getting married. So I'm like, marriage, I don't know. Like, so, it does help that union with self and soul. She talks about the next area is, unless, Brent, did you want to add anything?
I can see, like, with the theme of marriage and unionship, well, it's the idea of having unification with other to make a more expanded form of, like, the third. Like, for example, let me grab it. Hold on, get that out of my life. I'm just gonna go grab a certain tarot card. Where the heck are you? Okay, probably down at the bottom.
This probably makes a circle here.
I'm just like flinging cards, like like they're just flying out of my hand.
And
While
I
I'm just
actually have cards all over myself.
it's okay. I'm gonna be so mad if it's just like, oh yeah, here I am at the very top. No, it's not. Okay.
I have done that before where like I miss it and then it's like I go back through and it was like the second card and you're like, what?
Okay. Aha, here we go. So, for living example, okay, turn this. Let me no. Okay, wrong button. Okay, let me just get this out of my life. Give that a flip.
Just let it go and let your higher power take over.
Yeah, just like with the Lover's card. It's when that unification happens, the angelic can form, and that's the also the symbolic reference of having through another you're able to understand the higher power of self better because that other person is being a reflection back to you to gain that awareness, and that's what Venus wants to do. It wants to have that unionship with another to better understand something much higher.
That makes sense. Here, I'm just going to hold this one up because they're entwined together.
I also like the contrast of like there's one that is like in white and the other one in purple. It shows
Right?
like
Yeah. Because when we do, and if you think about it, even if you don't get married, our heart chakra takes our spiritual aspects and our mental and our physical aspects and it intertwines it all together and makes balance.
mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bren, because I kept sitting here because some of these sacraments, I'm like, the sacraments were kind of a little harder for me for some reason.
Yep, and funny too. Each of the 7 planets go with the sphere, of course, obviously, and with Venus's case, marriage, it's that because well, with the term of marriage, it doesn't have to be all like, oh, I do with a ring on it. No, it can be just like having self and then other exchange come together. They bond together like that. They merge. Then something new comes out of it. So it could be just like this: a marriage of thought, marriage of philosophy, marriage of spiritual standing.
Thank you, Bren. Yeah, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, some of the sacraments, I'm like, and she goes more into the chakras than she does into the Kabbalah and the sacraments. So, like you just see that little bit in there. All right. Okay, so the next section, she talks about primal fears. So, with our heart chakra, the primal fears are loneliness and commitment, the inability to protect oneself emotionally, fear of emotional weakness and betrayal. Loss of fourth chakra energy can give rise to bitterness, hatred, jealousy, and inability to forgive yourself and others. So we get that forgiveness again. I'm just saying this, and maybe like there are a few people, very small handful of people that have been horrible to me directly in my life. Have I forgiven them? No. Do I think about them? No. I forgave myself for if I had a role in the situation, or I forgave myself for feeling guilty about the situation. So I think forgiveness is a big thing. We're going to talk about it a little bit further because she does bring that up. But I do think it's really interesting, the fear of the inability to protect oneself emotionally. All right. This, I think, is so important because, like, I was not raised for self-love and to have self-care. It was, you need to give to everybody. Make dinner for sick people. Take sick people's kids out to the park. Like, do things for others. There was never like, ask if you need help. There was never do service for yourself. And so I think that was damaging for me because it was hard for me to stick up for myself. So it put me in situations where people would hurt me. So I think self-care is really important and protecting ourselves is really important. And this is generational. So I want to throw this out because I've read a lot on like the different generations. And so I can't remember what before the pre-baby boomers are, but then you've got baby boomers, Generation X. Yes, I'm a forgotten generation. Then you got the millennials and whatever's after that. So sorry, I don't remember the ones after. Because everything I've studied is we have these generations of people that never knew self-care and self-love. It was just starting to come out when those of us that are X generation, like we were latchkey kids, but we were starting to be like, well, I want my mom to be at my dance recital. I want my mom to be at my baseball game. Like we wanted that. We wanted that support. So we started giving it to our millennial kids. And then that self-love was starting to come of, I should be able to go to book club and support my kids. It's not all about my kids. So generations, it's slowly coming out how important self-love and self-care is. So that fear that she talks about, the fear of the inability to protect oneself emotionally, have grace with yourself if that is one of your fears. And it's okay to tell somebody, no, it's okay. Like you should not feel shame or guilt for it. Bren, what do you want to add about the fear part? There were a lot of fears in there. And if you need me to repeat them, let me know.
Yeah, repeat them again.
Okay. So fear of loneliness, commitment, fear of inability to protect oneself emotionally, fear of emotional weakness, betrayal, and then the loss of the fourth chakra energy is jealousy, bitterness, hatred, anger, and the inability to forgive others as well as oneself.
I think probably the one I'm going to hit the most because this is something that I I kind of feel that it's I don't again this is just my loving opinion. The fear of having a like of commitment because now at least the way that I look at it and the way that I feel about it is that well if you're going to make that the choice to devout or give yourself to something for like the rest of your life or the fear of making that choice to stick. For me, if you have, if there's like any, if there's like a fear of it, is it really because you're afraid to having to take on a responsibility, or is it being used as a means to make an excuse to not honor that commitment? Because I've had that played on me before, and I've said, well, you still made that commitment. I don't care because you still made it. If you were having the second thoughts, well, you should have thought about that long before you even thought about making the step and having it be like presented and known multiple times. At that point, it's like, oh no, you're really stuck. But even then too, if there's like the fear of wanting to express something on a level, if you have that feeling within, and if you're making the choice to honor that feeling and go with it, that's really up to you to make that call. And if it's your truth, well, honor your truth. Don't use it as a means of like saying, like, let's see, I'm trying to remember which friend. Well, there was a friend of mine who had somebody pull that, give her that false sense of security and that false commitment just to get close, if you know what I mean, and just walked out of her life after that. So that is kind of at the same thing of like, was it really a fear of commitment that he had, or did he rather have ulterior motives?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that does happen a lot, actually. I'm sure we can all think of an example in our lives, whether it happened to us directly or somebody that we care about, like a family member or a friend.
But either way, at least on the good part though is that well, he did get his just desserts. I might have had something to do with it, maybe I don't know. Okay, fine, I did, but well, sucks for him. But ultimately, uh, it's well. Then this is also another thing to take into account too. Being aware of like I don't mind having this noise in the background. Just being aware that the actions you do and how you respond or go towards someone, to check in with yourself and think, okay, so this person did this, whoopsie to me. Or I'm going to try and present this to this person the best that I can. So how am I going to present this in a way where it's not going to cause harm to them, but still get my point across? When you start doing that, that's also not only honoring yourself and being mindful of yourself, but then it's also the other person. And that way it's giving that as gingerly and careful consideration rather than just allowing the instinct to take over and cause more harm than good.
Something to think about. So for and I know we've had a few people joining. We're doing Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss. We are on the heart chakra, and so we're really diving deep tonight. Really deep, because the heart chakra, literally, it's pumping blood through our body. It's our heart, it's our feelings, it's our emotions. All right, so the next section is primary strengths. Love, forgiveness, compassion, dedication, inspiration, trust, hope, and the ability to heal oneself and others. You know what? I'm going to say this is totally true. When we have all, like, I don't care who you are on this planet, we have all had a broken heart. Whether it's from a breakup or someone who has unalived, everybody has experienced a broken heart at some point in their life. And even if it's like a friend moving away, you know, like especially when you're little and you have like your best friend and their family moves to another state, and then like pre-internet, like you didn't, like that was it. It was like goodbye. When we actually heal that broken heart, we can heal ourselves and we can heal others. It, like, that last statement is so true. And I am like not just I'm confirming it because I have healed myself that way. So Bren, what thoughts?
Now, here's the interesting part. If you remember on Friday when I talked about with Venus being able to bring life back to the dead,
Mm-hmm.
that's why Venus is also one of the strongest medicines. Love is one of the strongest medicines. Just by simply holding the hand of your significant other or the person you're in love with, it can drastically improve and boost your immune system or hasten the healing process. It is so simple, but it can do so much.
And that is so true. I've seen it with like married couples who've been married for a very, very long time. And just like I think about my significant other, like if I don't tell him I'm having a bad day and he just like, he's also a Reiki practitioner and I'm a Reiki master, but he'll literally just like give me Reiki. Sometimes like on my back, or he'll just touch my shoulder, or he'll just be like, "Are you okay?" You know, and it's just that simple little touch. And it's like, I have someone who loves me, who's got my back. I love them. I've got their back. And I wish that for everybody. Like, I, I don't care what gender you are, as long as you have somebody that has your back. Even like, I know polyamorous families, and how beautiful is that you can have that kind of a relationship that everybody works out together. So you have like your own little family commune. How cool is that? I mean, I'm not saying I want it, but one family I'm thinking of in particular, I mean, they're just so beautiful together, and like they all have each other's backs. This is love, like Bren was just saying. It's like, even if it's just a friend, I mean, do you have a friend or a sibling that you're like that with? I know, like, I'm thinking about my little brother. I love him to pieces. He's single, and we have this bond. It's like if he called me and something was wrong, I would be on a plane out to help him in a heartbeat. Because that's just, like that's those relationships. It's even like if you have children, it's that relationship that you have with your kids. And hopefully your parents have that with you. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Bryn.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because with me and mine, I mean, some of the things that he endured, and of course I was there, a lot of them were quite intense, and a lot of them that the common everyday person probably would have not have even stayed and would have just up and left. And it's like as time went on, it progressively got more and more and more challenging. But through each one of them, I mean, I was there. I was able to get him through it, and he was definitely traumatized, and it even resulted him having his mental health and emotional health and capacity take a huge hit. But I, I don't think he would have been able to get through, or even I don't think he would even be alive if I didn't stay put with him. To put it as this point blank.
And see, that's important. Like we probably all need someone like that in our lives, even if it's like just, again, out there. Like I'm thinking of some of my friends who have siblings that they're close to, but they don't have anybody else. Um, it does happen. Um, but if you are lucky enough to have, your twin flame or your soulmate or whatever you want to call it, embrace that luck because we don't all get it. I mean, I know people who've been married forever and ever. And it's like, are they really in love? You've probably seen some of them, Brent. I've seen some where I'm like, how are they together? Like, they don't seem like they get along. But so yeah, if you have that, and you should love through everything. Like, I saw both my grandmothers actually died within 2 weeks. Or, oops, sorry, I shouldn't say that word. Both my grandmothers unalived within 2 weeks of each other. They both had one was on hospice, and long story short, they'd both been married to my grandfathers for over 50 years. And my grandpas had a hard time leaving their sides at night. Like at night, that's when like my dad and his sister would sit by their mom, and my mom and dad didn't even see each other for months because they were literally sitting with their moms as their moms were not doing well and were going to pass. And everybody sat. Like I even spent a couple days sitting with my grandma at night because my grandpa was not going to leave her side. And it was like, well, you've got to take care of yourself. You need to get sleep. That's why you have your kids and your grandkids. But to have that kind of love in a family, and that was one thing that really struck me, is if you have someone in your life that loves you that much that when you're sick, they're not going to leave your side, for sure that they are entwined with you.
Oh, well, that just hit a chord because actually it's funny you. Well, even though he'd really minded and really getting close to kicking the bucket, I did spend a whole week at his side when he was detoxing.
And most people wouldn't.
Yep,
I mean, that
didn't
says a lot about the love that you have for him.
didn't leave his side. The only time that it would you can say kind of technically did leave his side was simply just picking him up because he couldn't stand up. He was that weak, and just taking him to the bathroom. He used that, then taking him back. That was pretty much it.
Yeah. Even like right now, like, I mean, I hear those stories when you hear somebody who doesn't want to, like, that's unconditional love right there.
Hmm.
That is
And
the heart chakra. That is someone who is literally hitting like Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy. That's someone who's hitting enlightenment. Some, like, at least in my opinion, I could be wrong. Maybe Maslow will argue with me, but
yeah, and even well, I mean, oh, okay, we're gonna go really deep into this. Cannonball. So the incident where I almost hit the game over screen, if you know what I mean, it was because I thought he unalived too. So I wasn't able to handle it and comprehended that it almost pushed me to that point of just unaliving myself. But then that's when divine intervention came in and stopped her. And I mean, at that point where it's just like trying to function without having that, some people guilty, they just can't bear it because it's like their whole heart just went. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they do say couples who've been married for a very long time, when one unalives, usually the other one unalives within the first year.
Mhm. 15 years.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's, yeah. I mean, it's like I remember with both my grandfathers, I didn't say it out loud. Um, and both of them lived another over 20 years. You know, so, and it is really hard. Like my dad, like my mother unalived, and he has a girlfriend now. And, I know my sister was really upset because it was within 6 months. And I'm like, our dad would have probably unalived naturally had he not gotten a girlfriend. It was like, it's like losing a limb. When you are that entwined with someone in a relationship, it's like losing a limb.
Because it's like you're losing, and even somebody that close and intimate, it's like you're having that unionship, and then when it comes and gets ripped apart, it's like you lose that part of yourself.
Yeah. Hmm. On a happy note, her power healing for this is love is divine power. And what's really interesting is I've said for years, even before I had this book, that love is divine. And love really is divine. And think about like unconditional love, like what we would do for our children or our significant other or our parents. Love is divine. So I do think that's really important to, well, she says love is divine power, but yes, love is divine. So learning the power of love. So this is we're barely, like, usually we're a little further. Boy, love's been a big topic this week, and we're like just soaking up every minute we can. So she talks about love has such a strong power. And when you think about the power behind love, love is a lot more powerful than hatred. So she does talk about love's intensity and its forms of forgiveness, compassion, generosity, kindness, and caring for oneself and others. So just to add to that, I mean, quite frankly, love can conquer all. It really can. When you start to open up that compassion and that love, you will heal a lot faster. So that's one thing that's really good to know, I think. So she talks about how the first three, our root, our sacral, and our solar plexus, how they have some love, but it's really that grounding love. So when we get to this, it's our core. So she does give a story around this, and it's about a guy named Jack and his cousin Greg. And his cousin was like, let's start this business. We can make a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. And so Jack's like, okay. And felt like he was a rookie in this type of industry, but really trusted in his cousin. And then the business went under and his cousin disappeared. And Jack's heart was broken, and it was starting to manifest physically. And so his wife took him actually to one of Carolyn Myss's things, one of her conferences. And the wife says, this was really cool. So Jack's big thing was he felt like he felt his family. He wasn't mad any longer at his cousin, and the cousin's gone. Like, the cousin never came back. At least from the story, the cousin never came back. But the wife was sitting there with him at Carol and Miss's conference, and she said to him, "I will never believe that an act of love is rewarded with pain. I believe that if you change your perspective and hold to the truth that you supported someone you love because it felt right, then somehow all of this will work out fine for us." And so, like, just the wife saying that changed it. And again, it's like Jack was holding so much guilt because he invested the family's money, thinking that he was investing in a good business. And who knows, maybe Greg just screwed up, or maybe Greg ripped him off, because Greg did disappear. So who knows, right? But he thought he was helping his family. And so he was trying to do good for his family, and it just turned out not right. We all do this, and we just need to not feel guilty. Sometimes we do think we're doing something right, and it turns out not to be right. So I thought that was like very powerful, and to know, like, Carolyn literally says, this couple is an example of a spiritual power of heart energy. Compassion flowed from Lynn into Jack and gave him the support he needed to forgive his cousin and himself. So sometimes it's just that divine. Is it our higher power that's going to teach us that? Or is it that person that we love, like our child, our parent, our significant other? Bren, anything to add?
Oh boy, let's see. How am I going to go approach this one? Well, let's just say, because there were many times too where, I mean, there was one night in particular, I remember in 2015, that I was with mine, and him and I were sitting in like the bedroom, and he was just something, I don't remember exactly what caused him to start saying things out loud, but he was starting to say things like he was going through like all of these things that happened in his life, and I didn't ask him any of that. He just started just saying things out loud, and then before I knew it, sitting like next, like pretty close to him, and he's saying all this stuff, out of nowhere he just like grabs his head and starts screaming and yelling like, "Why is my life like this? Why this? Why that? Why that?" Just completely lost himself. And as soon as he started leaning back and putting his hands on his head, the minute that well, not really the minute, like, we're talking even faster, like, the moment that I saw that, I immediately knew to grab a hold of him and hug him as tight as I could. Don't say anything, and then just hold tight. And he just went his course. He said all he needed to say, and he was flailing, so he did accidentally bonk me a few times. But I knew he needs this. And I know this, it was intense. It was also emotionally difficult for me to try and keep it together, because it's like, well, other half is in this state of like despair. Of course it's going to affect me too, but I was the anchor. And after, when he got all that out of his system, he was able to stop, take a few deep breaths, and I remember just gently letting him go. Then I just got in front of him, and then I got down to his level because he had his head down. And I just told him, "Look at me. No matter what happens, you're going to get through this, and I'm going to make sure you do. You got it?" And I mean, he was completely teared up in his eyes. He was scared. And I just kept reminding him that you're not alone. You may think that there's nobody. And really, honestly, he really did not have anybody that has been like consistent for a long period of time except me. So that was really a moving experience, because of all the times that I've known him, that's been the only time where he has gotten to that state of extreme despair. And a part of it too, he was also saying how he was treating me wasn't the best way, and that he was aware, and he was even asking himself, why am I doing this to him? Why am I acting this way to Bryn? Why am I doing this? It's not right. How come I keep doing this? And I mean, I just told him that you had the awareness of what you were doing, and you were trying to you're trying to do something to make it stop. That right there shows that you're trying to make that effort. So why am I going to be mad at you for at least trying? And yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we need that physical connection, and that's where our heart chakra comes in. Beautiful story, Bren. Thank you for sharing. So this is a heavy week this week because we're talking love. So we had a lot of fun on Thursday with Venus. We're doing Anatomy of the Spirit by Myss. And this is really teaching us the 7 stages of power and healing. So it is a little more intense tonight. But it is very beautiful because we're talking about our heart chakra, and our heart chakra really impacts our spirit and our mind. And this can affect and manifest physically in physical ailments. And that's where Myss comes in, because she is a medical intuitive. And so she wrote this book based on medical intuition. So this next section is loving oneself as the path to the divine. This is so important. I actually learned this going through my trauma, that we do need to learn to love ourselves. She does say, if you can't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. Well, she says that expression is commonplace. That's not, so you will love others, but until you love yourself, you don't know what unconditional love is. And we do need to love ourselves. To be healthy, we need to give self-care and self-love. So I think that's why our heart chakra is so important. She did give an example of a client she had who was the wounded child. So this, I was like, light bulbs were going off all over the place as I reread this part. So the wounded child within each of us contains damaged or stunted emotional patterns from our youth. Patterns of memories, of negative attitudes, and dysfunctional self-images. So one thing, I do shadow work. I teach shadow work classes, and I also, I've done a lot of different, I've taken shadow work from a lot of different people who've even called it different things. One consistency is that there is probably something that happened to us in our childhood that we never healed from. That's our wounded child. And you may have repressed it. Like for me, I had repressed it. And when I figured it out, I was like, oh my gosh. It was like a huge lightning bolt going off, because it was like, now I know why I did this and this and this. And it was like, literally, I could look at the chain reactions. But it took me a long time to figure it out. I actually went backwards from the age I was when I started my shadow work. I'd go backwards and say, this really affected me and this triggers me. This affects me and triggers me. And I kept going back until I hit that one moment. So with this particular one, she gives a story about a businessman who attended one of her workshops, and he had a lot of painful childhood memories. He had been the A word as a child by both his parents. He was physically hurt and denied food, and would be forced to wear shoes that were too small for him as a form of punishment. So he left home and stopped communicating with his parents. And he attended this workshop. He was married and had his own children. He was raising his children completely differently because he didn't want to raise his kids the way he was raised. Kudos to him, because it is really hard to break that cycle of A, which you guys probably understand. Hopefully you understand what the A word is. So he was talking about that, and he was listening to this, and he talked to Carolyn and said, my father recently unalived, And my mother reached out and wants me back in her life, but he was having a really hard time because he was still holding some of that pain, that childhood wound. You know, all he wanted was that apology from both mom and dad. Dad's not going to give it. One thing we need to also remember is sometimes like our parents don't realize that it hurts. And you can't just confront somebody and say, this hurt me, because they don't think they're wrong a lot of times, right? So he actually decided that healing was possible and that he was going to actually let his mom back in his life, but was going to show his mom what a healthy, loving family was supposed to be like. And so for him, that was him showing his mom forgiveness. Literally in here, Carolyn Myss said, self-love means caring for ourselves enough to forgive people in our past so that the wounds can no longer damage us. For our wounds do not hurt the people who hurt us. They only hurt us. I'm going to say that again because that's really important. Self-love means caring for ourselves enough to forgive our wounds. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let me start over. Self-love means caring for ourselves enough to forgive people in our past so that our wounds can no longer damage us. For our wounds do not hurt people who hurt us. They only hurt us. So our heart chakra, giving us self-love and opening our heart chakra, is what's going to heal those wounds. The people in our past aren't going to do anything. I mean, really, like, I was bullied by kids in school. I was even bullied by the person who I thought was my best friend. And, you know, I thought about it and I was like, why was I friends with this person, right? Like, I called her my best friend and she even bullied. Like, when the bullies would bully me, she'd like pick on me too. And I was like, what the heck? She's never apologized. She never will. So I was like, I don't need her anymore, right? I see her like once a year for lunch. I'm like, no big deal. I haven't seen her for 3 years now because I was like, wait a minute, what the heck? How many of us have ever had somebody who was absolutely cruel to us reach out and apologize? I can tell you right now, I had 5 people pick on me in elementary school. I actually did have one person who called me because he said he could not marry the girl that he was planning on marrying, knowing what he did to me when we were in elementary school. But other than that, the other people he hung out with that picked on me, I haven't seen any of them. Bren, go. I can tell you're ready. You're ready to share. We're ready to hear.
I would have to say, but now the thing to keep in mind is this. For the forgiveness to make that effort on their own accord, and be genuine about it, and not to use it as a manipulation tactic, because I've seen that happen before. It's been tried to be played on me. Saw right through it. So far, I've had one. And it was my own significant other. And he made some choices which were pretty devastating. But because he came towards me, did exactly what I told him to do. Just tell me what's going on, be upfront, and I'm getting more concerned about you than anything else. He came forward and he said exactly what happened, what he was feeling, and what made him act that way. Even if it was by his own choice or not, or if it was somebody manipulating, that's the best word I'm going to use, manipulating him to act a certain way by feeding him BS or rumors or whatever, he still was able to come to that conclusion like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound like Bryn. And then coming and then apologizing and being sincere that he was believing the other person instead of really thinking in that moment like, is that really Bryn? But that's the important thing. Having the awareness of the whoopsie or big oopsie doopsie that you've done and going to correct it and being sincere about it. Because, of course, there's this whole thing of like somebody apologizing, like, oh, I'm sorry that happened. It's like, okay, that was hollowed in a tree trunk, okay. But it's, I'm trying to find a way to go about this. Like, because for me, how I stand, if somebody makes an oopsie, and now this is also at the same time where without me even really thinking about it or being most of the time aware of it, most of the time I do not say anything. I instead let them keep going about their thing or doing whatever they're doing and see if this person has the awareness and understanding of what they've done. And if they're able to make that decision and the choice to come forward and be sincere about the mistake that they made and if it did cause harm and they apologize. More than 99% of the time, they don't. And at that point, it puts me in that position to where it's like, well, I hate to be, point blank, but you just showed your character. And when you give somebody that, saying that I didn't say anything because I would have thought that you would at least have the awareness, and being that aware, you would have made the choice to do the right thing, but you chose not to. That's a heavy to the face.
It is a heavy face. And you know what? And sometimes the people that like our siblings and our parents, they're the ones that can actually do more damage to us.
Yep.
Because they love us and they just think, we'll just forgive. And you know what? They're usually the easiest to forgive, even if they don't apologize. But we need to understand to love ourselves. We can't have any expectations for anybody who does harm to us to apologize. Even like, I had a friend, he's sweet, he's a nice guy, but he literally had said to me, and like COVID had happened, and let's face it, everybody put weight on during COVID. Before COVID, I was a lot thinner than I am now. And he's like, you're fat now. Like, it hurt. Like, I knew I was, but I didn't need somebody to tell me that. I knew I'd put weight on, and it did hurt, but it's like, I know I gave him that face, and he goes, well, you are, and it was like, but you just don't. Sometimes
it just wasn't even necessary.
It wasn't necessary. But what we need to think about, like with that, I let it go in because I know how this person is. But like, is it something worth fighting over? Because let's face it, if you tell somebody you really need to apologize for that, it's not going to be sincere. It's just like when you'd fight with your siblings and your mom or your dad would say, you need to apologize and hug and make up. Not going to happen. So, yes. And you know what? Chaos, yes, you've got in there. I think of my own parents could have apologized for things I felt they should have. Yes. I actually, I'm going to tell everybody, like, I literally wrote my parents like a 5-page letter. And I said to my husband, I need to read this to someone. Mm-hmm. And I read it to him. And at the end, my husband's like, if you give that to them, they're not going to apologize. And I said, I needed to get it out. I'm not going to give it to them. I just needed someone to hear it. And you're the one that needed to, like, I know that you're going to be like, I understand how you felt. My parents wouldn't. But it made me feel good. It made me feel good to get it down on paper because let's face it, like, honestly, if you had baby boomer parents or your parents were the generation before baby boomers, they weren't perfect. It's generations of not really understanding, teaching self-love and teaching children to actually speak up for themselves. So many things. X generation, we did our best. Because we were like, our kids are not going to be latchkey. But unfortunately, a lot of X generations became helicopter parents. So, it's going to slowly work its way. I think the most important thing is teach self-love. And if you need to give yourself self-love. My heavens, just sometimes, like, I've had days where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go have a bath because, like, a bath sounds nice. Or I'm going to go for a walk. Self-love and self-care and teach that. And even if you don't have children, but you have nieces and nephews, teach them that and teach them to speak up. Yes, I love that, Chaos. I've learned to forgive in order to move forward and allow them to have a relationship with my kids. You know what? We do have to do that. We really do, even when it's hard. And like this situation, like that I read about Derek, for those that came late, Derek's parents were, I'm just going to say cruel. And he taught his mother by showing her how he loved his children and how, taught by example. And hopefully everybody will eventually grow. I mean, there's things I look back, I wish I'd done a little different with my kids. My kids are all adults now. But you know what? I can tell them now, So, I did always tell my daughters to speak up, though. I was very adamant about that. I was like, always have your voice be heard. Because unfortunately, a lot of times women's voices are not heard, but we have a lot of communities where voices aren't heard. So if you're part of one of those communities, there's a lot. We could be an hour naming them all. Yeah, voices need to be heard. But yes, we do have to forgive ourselves. And I think sometimes we have to figure out what's important. Do we have to forgive people that we're not blood related to? I don't know. I mean, like those bullies, I would have loved for them to all have apologized. But you know what? None of them have done anything in my life, right? Who cares? Like, I don't care about them. I probably will never ever, I haven't seen them in a very long time. Probably will never see them again. The next section, and again, for those that just joined, we're doing Anatomy of the Spirit, Carol and Myss. We're doing a chapter a week. So every Sunday we're doing a chapter. We're kind of going through. The next section in chapter 4, which is about the heart chakra, is awakening the conscious self. And I wanted to see what was most important in this because I was marking pages. Oh, with this, she does talk in here about our consciousness. With our 4th chakra, our consciousness can change. But when our 4th chakra is damaged, where we have that broken heart, and she did talk about like the heart being broken or completely split in half, this can actually cause health issues. And she brought up the story of a man named Perry who happened to be a physician. And he attended some of her workshops and he had a big practice and he wanted to start incorporating holistic care, but was really nervous about not giving conventional treatments like prescription drugs to people. Prescription rugs to people. I'll get used to all these TikTok words. I should be used to them already. So he was really nervous about that. And he ended up actually suffering a heart attack while he was at work. And you know what, Chaos? It's actually all of the replays I actually am posting on my Patreon and on YouTube. So those just joining, if you're like, oh my gosh, I want to be like, if you have not caught me before, Bren's actually been on every time with us. We've had some really beautiful discussions. I am reposting the replays on my YouTube channel and my Patreon. My Patreon link is in my bio. My YouTube channel is Triple Goddess Apothecary Reiki. It's also literally in a lot of the posts I have. You can usually scroll through the post and get like one of the posts, any of my posts I have, and get the link. So I do replay them. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. Yes, you can get them. No, the link in my bio is for my Patreon, but you can join the Patreon for free and get these replay videos. So you type like Anatomy of the Spirit, the book we're doing, all the replay videos will start popping up. So you can start from the first, the introduction, because we did the introduction and all the chapters. So, and feel free to stay for the rest of the heart, because the heart's pretty important. So yes, you can get those on Patreon. So the 2 links in my bio is to my website and Patreon. If you click the one that takes you to my website, you can click Patreon on my website and it'll take you straight to Patreon. And I do think on my website, it will have my YouTube channel there. So, so it will take you there. So, but okay, so I'm going to go back to Perry. So this doctor wants to start practicing holistic medicine, but he's really nervous about like the whole like giving prescriptions and everything. And ends up having a heart attack because he's really tossed between trying to incorporate holistic care with modern medicine. And he literally said to Carol and Myss, he said, I suffered a very severe heart attack. I will always believe that I regained my health because I entered therapy and therefore I entered into myself. So he talked about like after his heart attack, how he literally went to a psychologist because his spiritual needs weren't being met. And he ended up opening a holistic health center that incorporates holistic health with modern medicine. What I felt was really important with this is that in the spiritual community, we have so many beautiful tools. And so like, I will say, this is another tool for your medicine kit, because when we look at working with crystals, crystal Reiki, crystal energy healing, and there's lots of forms. I happen to do two different forms of Reiki, but there's energy healing. We have sound therapy. We have herbs. We have, if you're in the pagan community, we have rituals that we do. We work with the moon. We work with the planets. If we're working with astrology, like so many tools are available to us to help us heal ourselves. Sometimes that doesn't always work. So I'm not telling you always use 100% holistic, because honestly, sometimes we need a therapist or a psychologist to help us. And if you're lucky, like if you've got a really good primary care physician, and more primary care physicians now are trying to kind of incorporate holistic care. Like my primary care, I'm so lucky to have her because she incorporates holistic. And I literally said to her, like when I've been really sick, she's like, a lot of people like this rug to help with the pain. And I'm like, no. She knows I like the holistic stuff. So we'll sit and talk about Bach flower remedies or what herbs can help. Because honestly, like rugs tend to mask your pain and not actually alleviate it. But this was really like telling. So like this guy literally has a holistic clinic and he's a medical doctor, so he incorporates both. How beautiful is that? And I think we're going to start seeing more of that now. But when our heart is broken, we're going to start physically manifesting. And so this is when we need to seek that medical care before that heartbreak manifests into physical elements. And so like that can be your primary care physician, any medical physician, a psychologist, psychiatrist, or a counselor. Bren, what do you want to add? I mean, this is kind of an important topic.
Yes, because I mean, heck, I'm a good example of like when the heart gets so critically damaged that it affects your ability to keep your grip on living. It got pushed to such a bad level that I turned on myself because I was starting to believe that, well, it was because of me, my significant other, took too much, which he didn't, by the way. So if the heart gets broken that bad, there's even also, what is that syndrome called? Broken heart syndrome. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's essentially where the pain in the heart becomes so intense that it damages the heart and it causes heart attack or heart failure. It's something that it sounds fantasy, but it's a real condition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, and we've got a couple comments. Yes, it is real. And think about our heart. Not only is this like our heart chakra, but it's literally pumping the blood through our body. It's making sure we can breathe because it pumps the blood into the lungs where the lungs pick up. If you're not into the lungs, there's little alveolar sacs in your lungs, and the blood goes in there, picks up the air, the oxygen that it needs, and then it pumps out through your body. So it's like a whole cycle. So we need to keep our heart healthy. And if we suffer a severe breakup or a severe trauma that hurts our heart, that's going to affect us spiritually and mentally, and that's just going to break us down. And we'll start having physical manifestations that aren't healthy for us. So it is really, literally, like, our priority should be taking care of ourselves. And I also want to throw out there, just while we're kind of talking about it, I've taken sound therapy, like actually courses, because there's a really great Reiki master who incorporates the use of sound forks and Tibetan singing bowls in his Reiki sessions. There are studies done by like Harvard and I think it was John Hopkins, Harvard for sure, but it could have even been Mount Sinai, but there was another one of the big ones, where what they did is they took like a huge group. So they took so many people who had had heart attacks, so many people who had certain types of answer, the C, big C word. That's why I said answer. I took the C away. But in like certain different diseases and illnesses, and they had like half of them got sound healing using the Solfeggio frequencies with the medical treatment, with the proper medical treatment for the particular condition. And then the other half just got the proper medical treatment. And the sound healing sounds actually helped the patients get better faster. And it's the same thing with Reiki. Now, I cannot address other forms of energy healing because I'm a UC Reiki master, and the UC Reiki studies that I've read, because I am a UC Reiki master. So there are a lot of other forms of energy healing, but I can't touch on those. But the studies that have been done that were similar, where Reiki was used in conjunction with modern medical care, the people who did not get Reiki didn't heal as fast as the people who got Reiki too. So it was literally like, if the medical care was physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then in addition Reiki, they got better faster than the people who had everything but the Reiki. So, I mean, there's something to all of this. And so it's something to keep in mind. I think we need modern medicine, but we also need to remember there's this whole thing of holistic medicine that actually can help. So watch your heart chakra. And I just want to, like, as like my Reiki clients, when I have a Reiki client whose heart chakra is really blocked, and sometimes they'll open up and tell me about their trauma, and sometimes they won't, and I'll know they have something really, they're holding something. It actually spreads to your other chakras. So I will literally be giving them Reiki, and I'll get their throat, their third eye, and their crown open. I'll get their sacral, their root, and their solar plexus open, and their heart. I'm just like, gotta keep working on it and working on it and working on it. And then I'll see them like the next month or maybe the next week, and all their chakras are blocked again. Cause like our heart is literally the core. Not only is it our middle chakra, but it's the core of our body. So we really I think that's why like this chapter in the book of Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss regarding the heart chakra is really important, especially because of the fact that, heart issues, all those heart issues, if you have a broken heart, are going to lead to that. I know I see, like somebody said, I dig it, not disregarding one over the other, utilizing both. Yes. You know what? If we can use everything in conjunction, we'll just be better. I mean, why not? It's there, right? Why not make ourselves better by incorporating all of that? So Brent, I kind of went off again. Anything else you want to add?
Well, and it's funny that regarding like the medical field, because there is a specific temple or in health hospital that does not use any form of medical equipment. They only use specific mantras as their form of medical care. And it's, of course, is in India. They have a whopping 98% success rate. 98%. That shows you how powerful these things are and how we don't need to really rely on pharmaceutical medicine. 98%. 98 out of 100 people have some form of recovery or are completely cured of whatever ailment they were faced with. 98%. And they took every condition that came to them. They never turned away anybody. 98%.
Last year I read a book, so I can't remember how I found it, and it's been out for a while, and it was recommended. It's called Eastern Body, Western Mind. I literally emailed all of my Reiki students. I'm like, you have to read this book. It is completely profound. It is very, very thick. It was like literally this big. So it's a lot thicker, but Andronia, she is a psychologist. So she's taking the psychology of Western philosophy, psychology, and combining it with the chakras from the Eastern. And so when we're looking Eastern, we are literally looking at like India, China, Japan, all of that. Let's honestly look at this. When we look in the world, they are healthier than any other continents when we are looking at Asia and the Middle East. And most of the time they are using a lot of these holistic treatments. They're just like Bren just said. Even like when Usui Reiki was brought to the United States, it was brought, Mrs. Tacoma, and I hope I said her name right this time, went to Japan because the medical treatment she was getting here wasn't working. And she was a Japanese American. And so she went specifically to get Reiki, and she healed. And then she's like, I need to learn this and I need to take this to the States. That's just it, is there is so much out there that we haven't fully tapped into. I also think about like a lot of modern medicine, it helps us out, but like some of it is detrimental. So, like we each need to do our own, but, using a lot of this is really great. So yeah, the other book is Eastern Body, Western Mind. I'm thinking I'll probably bring that for a book club just because the chakras are like very profound. We can learn a lot from the chakras. And there's a lot of really great literature out on them for us to grow and develop. But we're going to move on. So the next section, she talks about moving beyond the language of wounds. This was really interesting. So she calls this, she calls a new language of intimacy woundology. And she tells the story about she was in a cafe waiting for somebody that she was supposed to go to lunch with. So she was there with two other people. And the person she was waiting for came in, and one of the other people said, "Hey, are you available on June 8th?" And she said, "June 8th? Did you say June 8th?" And then she goes on, not Carolyn Myss, this woman named Mary. She goes on to say that she can't let her group down. It's a group committed to supporting each other, and absolutely not that day, that she'll have to find somebody else. And that she literally talks about the group is for survivors of SA, and literally tells these people that she doesn't even know. And so Carolyn, the writer of the book, tells her, why did you have to share? Why couldn't you just say no? Because it was a yes or no question. And she never answered, and they weren't friends anymore. But so Carolyn talks about how woundology, like we go to emotional support groups, And the pain gets marketing, and people keep marketing the pain instead of healing from it. So she talks about what happens with this wound language, with woundology. That one, they will be there to support each other through any difficult memories or associations with the wound. 2, that support will include reorganizing any part of their social life or work life around the needs of anybody in the wound group. If required, they will carry their wounded partner's responsibilities as a way of showing how sincere they are in their support. 4, will always encourage their friends or their partners in the group to process the wounds and take as much time as needed for recovery. And then 5, will accept with minimal fraction all weaknesses and shortcomings rooted in the wound, since acceptance is crucial to healing. And so she says woundology has completely redefined parameters of intimacy. And so think about that. Like, as soon as that happened, like, I realized when I was dealing with my wound and my trauma, I would tell people that I normally wouldn't have told. And now I don't tell very many people. Like, I'm sitting here telling you guys, yes, I had a severe trauma. I worked through it. I'm healed, but I'm not telling you the trauma. I'm telling you, hey, I've healed my heart. I figured out how to self-love. I hope I can teach you this too. Right? Or at least maybe some of the things I did will help you. And as I was reading this, I was like, wow, yeah. I remember connecting with people who had similar wounds. And I also remember some of those people I don't talk to anymore, because every time we got together, it was talk about these wounds, and I was trying to move on. Like, I didn't want to be stuck in that wound. So woundology, what's our thoughts? Bren, what do you think about woundology?
You know, that kind of made me even think of that one song. It's an oldie song. Don't know much about history. Don't know much about biology. but but every one thing I do know for sure that I don't even remember the song, but that just made me rethink of that, because in a way that kind of does kind of weave in together that don't know much about history, don't want to remember the history, and don't want to even trigger the biology, the health response of it. But there's one thing that is known for sure, that I love me, and what a wonderful world this would be. I think I got somewhat of the right lyrics in there with the changing of the song to match the thing, but I think I got them. I think so, but that's essentially really, yeah. Woundology. When you're primarily saying, yeah, I've been through something that was quite heavy, and that kind of also goes with that concept of like you having to tell everybody every little specific thing. You don't have to go like over the top with it, but just saying that, yep, I've endured a lot of heavy things. If they're able to look back and then go and say, yep, this happened. It doesn't affect me, but this is what it was. But when they start you taking it and starting to flaunt it around like it's like a badge or something, or like they're not really completely healed from it, it does kind of risk the wound being opened up again.
Yes. Well, and I noticed, like, I remember telling my husband, the one friend, I was just like, I really like her, and we bonded over our woundology. I didn't say woundology at the time because I didn't really think about the term, but I remember saying to him, I'm trying to move past this, but I feel like every time we're together, she's like, how did that make you feel? Like, and it was like just reliving it, and I was done reliving it. I was ready to move on. And I think it will hold us back from our healing. And I don't want to have that broken heart forever. Like, I love that my heart's mended. I love, like, I'm just going to say, and I brought this up actually, on Thursday too. So this is my baby. She's a rose quartz, and rose quartz are really great crystals to work with for healing and self-love. These are love babies. But what I loved about her, and I saw her from across the room when I saw her, she's got lots of fractures in her. And you know, some people, like when they see like that the crystal has had cracks and stuff, they're like, I don't want it. When we see crystals with cracks that have healed, the crystal knows how to self-heal, because crystals are constantly growing. That's why I loved her. Like when I saw her, I was like, she's supposed to be mine and come home with me. This is where we want to be. We want to be this crystal that has been all self-healed. We can heal ourselves. Like that's the power. And I do think that was like a really great warning, because it was funny how like it literally, I was like, oh, I remember that one friend. And like, it was nice to be able to have somebody to talk to that understood what my trauma was. But when I was done and I was healing that trauma, to have to reopen it all the time, that was painful. It was like, no, I'm moving on. Yep. Oh, we've got somebody. I've got quartz with chips in it and beautifully imperfect. Yep. Yes. See, we're like, we can all like, we're going to have to do a crystal show and tell one day. I always look for the ones with the most cracks.
Like Aphrodite calcite, or just cobalt calcite. It's not a piece of candy. Of course, the rose quartz. Morgan Freeman. I call it that because it's Morganite. And
that is really great for our heart chakras.
And it's funny enough, it being a hexagon, like the way the structure of it is hexagon shaped. That's Venus. So, and it being a barrel. So yeah, it's a really feminine stone and it's really balancing. But the one that's always going to take the cake, I don't care. I would love to have a whole throne made of this stuff. Kunzite.
Yes. Which I actually just posted 3 pieces of kunzite on my website. And they're nice pieces.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I know. I was busy this weekend posting updated crystals, and I've got more to get pictures of. So, and some of my pictures weren't the best. Tanzanite and kunzite are actually both really great crystals to work with. Tanzanite, my tanzanites are really small. Tanzanite is one that's kind of a pricey crystal, like moldavite, but it is really worth working with. And actually, it's fun to work with kunzite. Yep, there we go. There's some tanzanite. Yeah, I think my 2 pieces of tanzanite are a little smaller than yours, Brent.
Well, I mean, I have quite a few pieces of it, but it's like...
Yeah, I found a piece that was probably about this size, and it was extremely pricey. And I was like, I really wanted it, but like I had gone a little overboard at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to get all the rest of them out of the bag, but essentially all the little pieces of tanzanite that I'm going to be putting in my hand, yeah, they're not even as big as a penny. And all of them together costed $100. $100 for these little guys.
Yeah, because my 2 pieces were like $50, and they're teeny.
Yeah, but I mean, that also shows that... what was I going to say? Oh, that with things that are, it kind of also shows that our perception of things, because before the Tanzanite mines got shut down, it was more available. But now that it's being closed off, it shows that idea that at any moment, somebody can do something to change the value of something. But if you have something, like, for example, but I'll just go with this one. Say, for an example, if somebody was to come up to me and just be all, you know what, I would pay $1,000 for your kunzite piece. Nope. And somebody else comes and says, well, I'll pay you $5,000. Nope. Well, it's just a kunzite piece. You can get another one. Stuck.
Sometimes they're more valuable.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I've got my piece of sarsen stone. Oh, she's. I'll pull it out now. He's like right across. I can see him. Hi, baby. I have like, well, I've got this little piece that I wear all the time, but I've got like a big chunk. It's so valuable to me. And you can't. It's really hard. So sarsen stone is the outer circle of Stonehenge. The inner circle is Preseli bluestone, and it's really hard to get. So sarsen stone, the only way you can get it is if somebody who has property near Salisbury, England, and happen to have it on their property. That's the only way you can get it, is if it's on private property. Because in the forest where it is found, that's protected, and you like literally like that's prison time. Like they don't mess with that. And then the same with Preseli bluestone, which makes up the inner circle. That's the Preseli bluestone. And I have a big chunk of Preseli bluestone too. I get Preseli bluestone, so I have it on my website. I think I have 2 pieces of sarsen stone for sale on my website too, but I get Preseli bluestone because I have a friend who actually lives in Wells. He has a farm in the Preseli Hills, and he has Preseli bluestone on his farm. So that's how I get my Preseli bluestone. I get it from him. But again, it's the same thing because the Preseli Mountains, the outcrops where Preseli bluestone is, that makes up the inner circle of Stonehenge, it is protected. So if you go in the outcrop and you grab a piece, that's prison time. And we're not talking a little prison time. We're talking like
Decades.
Yeah.
Because it's like defacing the country.
Yeah. Yeah, like the people who defaced it last year when they sprayed that paint on stone. Oh my gosh, I was like, because I've been to Stonehenge, and Stonehenge is so sacred. But not only that, like, yes, actually, it is like a huge crime. They did find out who the 2 people were. They were detained and arrested. They will probably be in prison for a good 20 years for that.
And I mean, and even if it's like able to be washed off, you're tarnishing one of the wonders of the world, pushing for climate change. Okay, so then why are you causing harm to the environment then?
And it's severe harm because all of a sudden I'm forgetting, but there's like an algae that grows on the stones. And they said, oh, it's okay, it will just come off because it was cornstarch paint. Actually, the cornstarch, if it gets wet, severely damages the stones and it's like an algae or fungus that's growing that's actually very rare. And it was actually very dangerous. They were lucky to get it off before it started raining because had it rained, it would have caused severe, irreversible damage. So yeah, it was bad.
I mean, at that point, whoever organized that, I mean, the one that is overseeing that organization, I mean, I would have also brought him in to say, hey, you're liable for this too. This is your organization. These are your people.
You know what's sad is like, literally, it's an environmental terrorist group. Because like I was like after they did that, I watched and they use this stuff all the time. Like they break into airports and they like do all this stuff. Yeah, somebody said bad karma. Yep. And it's like there's ways to do it without damaging things. And why would you damage something so sacred?
Yes. And it's a wonder of the world.
Yeah. I mean, because even still to this day, like I can tell you after being there, I know for sure that it was a sacred place for the Celts and the Druids to worship. I can tell you that after being there. But it's a sacred area. And like, yeah, sorry, get on that tangent. It's like my favorite place in the world. My husband was like, if you had been there, he's like, I think we would have seen a side of you. He's like, because I think you would have tackled and started beating the crap out of them. And I'm like, yeah, probably.
Yep, and then the Morgan comes out.
Yes, yes. Yes. So we digressed, but I did want to talk a little bit about the crystals because like there's a lot of crystals for the heart and Bren just brought a bunch of them up. And actually, I can tell you right now, Trauma-wise, if you're healing trauma, sarsen stone and Priscilla bluestone are very, very strong. Do it with kunzite.
Kunzite.
Mix that
Kunzite is literally, I like to call it Cupid in a rock.
kunzite with Priscilla and sarsen. I even used my Tibetan quartz and just bloodstone. That's a very beautiful one too. I love bloodstone too.
In fact, one of the bracelets and pieces that I have. Hold on, wait, let me grab it. It's in one of these boxes. Where'd it go?
I'm actually excited because I get to see my granddaughter next week. So she lives in a different state. And I get to see her. And I literally said, "Are we going to the crystal store?" Because she's my little crystal buddy. And she's like, "Yes, we are, Grandma." So maybe I'll go live from the crystal store and show you guys. Like, there's a really great crystal store that I take her to. It's our special place.
And one of them, and this is just an example, but one of them is, of course, there's the rose quartz, the bigger pink ones that's is kunzite, and then the smally ones that's morganite, and then of course clear quartz is there. But specifically, another good one, and this is a little pendant. If it'll be so kind just to sit still, and I'll try and jump out of my hand, is pink argonite.
Ooh.
Sit still. Thank you. Pink. Yeah, this thing. I'll tell you one thing. If you need a stone to be, let's just say, kind of give you that inspiration to be a bit turn up the sass when it comes to love, like protecting your heart. This little guy. Woo! And don't mess with him. But even another good combination would be even taking other stones such as, get up here, for more like what's the word I'm looking for? Reinvigorating, that was it. The heart is, well, of course, good old tug-to-pite, and lucky enough, you can see the pink coming through it now because there was some heat on it. And of course, it wouldn't be any kind of love stone without rhodochrosite.
Mm-hmm. I love rhodochrosite.
So do I.
I love rhodochrosite. As a matter of fact, I bought last year, and I bought there's a gem fair here in Illinois, and I bought rhodochrosite beads there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I've been wanting to buy them, and the guy's like, that's where I actually got the rhodochrosite beads the same time I got this big baby. My Orca agate freeform. I love him. Mm-hmm. But I was getting that, and I'm like, do you have rhodochrosite this year? And I was looking at it, because like rhodochrosite tumbled beads are very pricey, because I've been wanting to make Amala sets out of them. And he's like, I'll tell you what, I'll let you have the beads 50% off. I'm like, sold! Granted, I did pay a lot for my Orca agate, but he's worth it. So, oh, good. Somebody has a shop in New Orleans. Yeah, there's beautiful crystal shops everywhere. And I do have, rhodochrosite is expensive, but it's so worth it. Yep. And I think I have some rhodochrosite on my website right now, I think. If not, there's stuff I've got to get pictures of, but we digressed with crystals. We get sidetracked with the fun stuff. But crystals help us. So keep in mind, actually, if you do work with crystals in your medicine kit for healing, the green and the pink crystals typically are the good ones to help with your heart. And if you don't know for sure, please feel free to message me. Bren, are you fine if people message you on crystals too?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've even got on my website. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yep, this is a combination of rhodonite and rhodochrosite.
Yeah.
The big ones, that's the rhodonite. The little ones, that's the rhodochrosite.
That's beautiful. What about red and green, like dragon? Bloodstone, actually, the dragon bloodstone is actually good for your heart. Mm-hmm. The red crystals typically help with our root chakra, but there are a few that can help with the heart.
Yep, ruby's one of them. Mm-hmm. Ruby's one. Trying to remember.
Garnet.
Ruby zozite.
Yeah.
Ruby zozite.
So there are like So the general rule is most of the green and pink crystals. But there are some that are different colors that can actually help with your heart chakra too. And there are some that are like a color that helps with every chakra. So you'll be like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, you can actually use amethyst, even though it's purple and it usually helps with the crown chakra. It is a very strong healing stone too. So you can actually use that. I've actually used that with rose quartz before for healing of the heart.
And even whenever in doubt, regular clear quartz.
Yep. Clear quartz is programmable. So clear quartz is, I'm just going to say Tibetan clear quartz. If you can get Tibetan clear quartz, I have one that's for myself, but I do carry one. So when I give Reiki, I also incorporate crystal healing with the Reiki. And I literally have one piece for when I'm with clients that's only to help with whichever area their chakra might be blocked. Ooh, that's a pretty one too.
Yep, this one's like red and green balanced perfectly. Mm-hmm. But then also another green one that I have, Nevadan turquoise.
That one's beautiful. Yes, we have a lot. Yes, like I've got my jade turtle. I've got a jade frog too. I know, isn't he cute?
Oh man, my other half would have been like, no way, jade turtle? Yeah. It's like I heard his voice in my head just go like, no way.
This is my pet cat. Yes, Jade. When my Reiki master didn't want it anymore, and she let me have it for $70. I'm like, serious? And she's like, yeah, I'm done with it. I was like, all right. And it was so funny when I showed my granddaughter, she's like, can I have it? And I'm like, when I'm alive. That's literally what my answer was.
And I think, what material is it made of? Yellow jade?
Uh-huh.
Ooh. That got me all thinking like, oh boy. Because with the symbolism of a cat though, you have something that is able to go out, get something, then bring it back. Because you know, like how when cats hunt, they bring you back like something like here, human, have this.
Yeah.
And also it's luck too.
Well, at some point I'm actually going to move my shelf. So I kind of have a bunch of crystals there, but I want to put her with my Sekhmet statue.
So that would be perfect.
Yeah, she's supposed to be with Sekhmet. So, I mean, Sekhmet's got I've got some really cool crystal spheres with Sekhmet. But I'm like, yeah, the cat's supposed to be there too. So I just have to rearrange everything. But all right, we're going to get back to our book because it is Witchy Book Club. Those that just joined, Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss. This is the 7 stages of power and healing. And this is the 4th chakra, the heart chakra that we're talking about tonight. So this is really cool. I'm really glad she put this in her. The path to an empowered heart. And she literally gave us, let's see, is it 5 steps? Let me just double check. 6 steps. So I'm going to say the step. Okay, so step 1. Commit yourself to healing all the way to the source of the pain. This means turning inward and coming to know your wounds. So that's step 1. Commit yourself to healing all the way to the source of the pain. You may have to dig really deep because sometimes the source of our pain we may have repressed. So kind of keep that in mind. Any comments, Bren, on step 1?
Yeah, well, I mean, the exercises that I do whenever I try to go within, I don't think I gotta turn the camera on for this, is I take this thing, blindfold, completely have it, and of course this is also being done in the dark, and if I can get this thing to sit still, so come on, just get tied, please. Thank you. Okay, we got 1 and 2. People are probably looking at me on the outside like, what the heck is he doing? Well, okay, got it. So, going within, card slides off. Few deep breaths, and this is called I call it essentially walking in the, going within the personal labyrinth. And after a few deep breaths, visualizing in front of me an entrance into a labyrinth. And this is done sitting, and essentially what I do is I point forward, and then the surrounding area moves in that direction. And while going through the labyrinth, I'm supposed to find a certain symbol on the ground, and that takes it to the next layer and then goes deeper. And times there have been things that made me go, oh, good Lord, that was intense. But the main thing is just me challenging myself to just accept it for, yep, that is what it is. It's not bad or good. It happened. And coming and just allowing it. But not letting it go like, oh gosh, no. And then just going as far as I can up until I can't more, then I just end it.
Yeah, and I've done shadow work where there's shadow work questions that you answer. And, whenever we are delving deep and finding our wound, healing ourselves from that wound, and then letting the wound go, it can be really heavy, especially when you go, oh my gosh, I repressed that for how many years? So keep in mind that when that comes up, it might be pretty heavy for a couple days. So you need to have grace and love for yourself and compassion for yourself. So do something nice for yourself. If it means getting a manicure or getting a new outfit or having a long hot shower or a long hot bath or, just randomly going to your favorite national park, whatever it is, have grace as you're going through the process. Okay, so step 2, Carolyn Myss says, once inside, identify your wounds. Have they become a form of wound power within your present life? If you have converted your wounds into power, confront why you might fear healing. I know, this is really heavy. Helpful, heavy.
The last part though, what you fear of healing, now keep this in mind. That does tie into the fear of the unknown, because you're so used to this, having that fear of but this is what I've known for so long. If it's gone, what am I going to be standing on? But then that's when you have to take that moment and think and really understand that the minute that this is healed, that deep-rooted wound will be gone. And as you're getting used to it being gone, it'll start to grow into something as it was supposed to. It's, again, easier said than done. But, again, definitely take the time that you need. It doesn't have to be one deep reach in, pluck out. No. Slow and steady.
Yep. Yes, slow and steady wins the race. Or like the movie What About Bob? Baby steps. Seriously, I say baby steps all the time because that's that's really what it is. It's baby steps. So step 3, once you've verbalized your wounds, observe how you use them to influence or control people around you as well as yourself.
Oh, I'll be the first. Let me be the first to come up here and be like, yep. How? Simple. Babe, how come you're not messaging me back like how you used to? And all the things that you've done in the past that makes me feel like you might be going behind my back or abandoning me. Can you just please just tell me that? There it is. That's how it used to be. That's an example.
Yep.
You're trying to use the pain that they caused, though. You're trying to use that as a means to get whatever kind of discomfort or pain sedated. it's not the best thing to do. It's understandable, but don't use it that way.
So, and if you don't have this book, it is very eye-opening, Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss. And honestly, like, third time I've read it and I'm still getting stuff out of it. Step 4, identify the good that can and has come from your wounds. Because we all grow from these. We really do. You know, if you're in like the depth of the wound, you may not be able to see it. And I'm telling you from my personal experience, sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you can't see what you're learning. It might be a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and you'll be like, oh, wow, I did learn something and I grew from it in a positive way. Bren, go ahead.
Well, let's see here. Part of it too was I would have to say when you're able to, well, the things that can be healed from the wounds and the good thing is not only after you heal from it, you could then use your recovered state to then help somebody come out of that same state.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. All right, step 5, she says, once you've established a consciousness of appreciation, you can take on the challenge of forgiveness. She does go on to say, forgiveness is not the same as telling the person who harmed you it's okay, which is more or less the way most people view it. Rather, forgiveness is a complex act of consciousness. One liberates the psyche and the soul from the need for personal vengeance and the perception of oneself as a victim. So really, step 5 is forgiveness and becoming a survivor instead of a victim. Bren, anything you want to add with step 5?
Now, yeah, not really that I can really think of.
Okay.
Next.
It's kind of heavy. So step 6, this is the final step. Think love. Live in appreciation and gratitude. Invite change into your life, if only through your attitude. Now, I have to say, like when I was going through my healing process, I was in literally the darkest place you can be when I first read this book. It went like half the stuff, I was like, whatever, right? I started healing, finding different things. When the book was recommended to me, I wasn't ready for it. When I read it in 2019, I was like, wow. Some of it I had done in a different way. I know this chapter was really profound then, and it still is profound to me now. But honestly, like I've heard the phrase, gratitude is the attitude, or have a gratitude attitude. It is really true. You know, I can look back now and say I'm thankful for the process and how hard it was to work through my trauma and my wounds, because I've learned and I've grown so much as a person, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so I've grown from it. Would I wish those kind of wounds on anybody else? No, I would never wish that trauma on anybody, but I've grown from it. And that's the important thing. And then you reach a beautiful spiritual level. So I think that's really important. I don't know, Bren, if you wanted to add anything with that.
Nope, because I think it just nailed that point on the head just perfectly.
All right, so she ends the chapter with the questions for self-examination. So I'm going to be honest, these are very personal. So I'm going to read the question twice. So if you're writing them down, you can write them down. And then I'm just going to say my Patreon, the link to my Patreon is in my bio. I will have the questions on the replay for today. So if you do want to like actually see the questions in writing, if you don't have the book, you can get it off the replay on Patreon. And then the replay will be on my Patreon and on YouTube. So you can always listen to the question and pause it if you want to write the question down. When I get like things like this, I actually write the question down and then I like write as much as I need to. And it's always nice to go back to, and then you can answer the questions anytime. So you could answer like question 1 today, and you could answer it next year, and you're going to find a different answer because you've grown more. And that's actually really cool to see your progress as you grow spiritually. So, all right, questions for self-examination. I'll read them twice. 1, what emotional memories do you still need to heal? So question 1, what emotional memories do you still need to heal? Question 2, what relationships in your life require healing? Question 2, what relationships in your life require healing? 3, do you ever use your emotional wounds to control people or situations? If so, describe them. 3, do you ever use your emotional wounds to control people or situations? If so, describe them. 4, have you ever allowed yourself to be controlled by the wounds of another person? What are your feelings about letting that happen again? What steps are you prepared to take to prevent yourself from being controlled that way again? So question 4 has a lot, so I'll repeat them. Have you ever allowed yourself to be controlled by the wounds of another person? What are your feelings about letting that happen again? What steps are you prepared to take to prevent yourself from being controlled that way again? 5, what fears do you have about becoming emotionally healthy? 5, what fears do you have about becoming emotionally healthy? Question 6, do you associate emotional health with no longer needing an intimate relationship? Number 6, do you associate emotional health with no longer needing an intimate relationship? Question 7, what is your understanding of forgiveness? So number 7, what is your understanding of forgiveness? Number 8, who are the people you have yet to forgive, and what prevents you from letting go of the pain you associate with them? Number 8, who are the people you have yet to forgive, and what prevents you from letting go of the pain you associate with them? Question 9, what have you done that needs forgiving? Which people are working to forgive you? Number 9, what have you done that needs forgiving? Which people are you working to forgive you? 10, what is your understanding of a healthy, intimate relationship? Are you willing to release the use of your wounds in order to open yourself to such a relationship? So the last question, question number 10 again. What is your understanding of a healthy, intimate relationship? Are you willing to release the use of your wounds in order to open yourself to such a relationship? I know those are really, really heavy. And, you know, I don't expect anybody to want to share at that point, but Bren, anything you want to add? Because I know those are heavy. So,
Yes. All that I can say with the questions is that when answering them, just be as truthful as possible. And when you're answering, don't even try throwing out reasons why this. Just say, like, for example, the people that are working towards forgiving, just put their name down. And you don't have to go to extreme detail. Just boop, simple, easy peasy.
Yep. And have grace. I mean, have grace. It's healing is a process, and I want everybody to have, like, our heart chakra is literally the core of our chakras. It is the middle of the chakras on our body. And we need to have grace with ourselves when we're going through the healing process. And, the older we get, the more wounds we have, especially because we get into patterns. So if you think about it, like somebody who's a victim of DV, it's a cycle of abuse. And you've been in that cycle, whether it's with one person or two people or three people, you're in this cycle. So it's like a hamster running on a wheel, and you're just running and running and running and running. When you finally leave and you're ready to heal, it's really hard, and you are probably going to feel ashamed, and you're probably going to feel guilty. And you know what? You need to heal yourself and get rid of that, because it's not 100% on you. And you don't need to relive every horrible moment from that DV to heal. Now, that's just a little bit there that I can give you. But, everybody's situation is different, whether it's a childhood wound that your parents inflicted, or grandparents, or a teacher at school, or like bullies at school. Have grace with yourself. Especially the older you are, because the older you are, the more years that you have between the wounds, it is a little bit harder. So just have grace and love for yourself, and know that this is a beautiful spiritual community. And I mean, there's lots. I mean, Bren and I gave you guys like a lot tonight. I know this is pretty heavy. And actually the stuff we talked about on Venus on Thursday, a lot of that will actually help. And it was more uplifting. So anything else you want to add, Bren?
Nope, not that I can think of. Just, again, take your time with yourself, and just know that at the end of the tunnel is being restored and being able to function better. It may not feel like it, and you may think this is never going to happen. Just take your time with it, and you'll be able to get through it.
Okay, so that was chapter 4. So part 2, chapter 5. So we're going to be talking about our throat chakra. Is next week for Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss. So the replay will post on my YouTube and my Patreon, and then we'll be here next Sunday with Witchy Book Club with this book. But we'll be here Tuesday. Bren and I do 1-card tarot reading, so you get literally 2 cards, because our cards connect a lot. So you literally get a reading.
Wait a minute, how'd that work?
I know, right? So please join us. Azrael usually joins, and he does his intuitive readings. And so Tuesday tarot, and then we're talking about Saturn on Thursday. So literally we are here Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so we're here to bring it, man. We're going to bring lighthearted, and we're going to bring also heavy. So,
yeah, that's right. Well, you kind of know where Saturn is. Quiet kid.
Yeah. And Thursday is an open panel. So if you know how to work with Saturn in any of the astrology, or if you know how to work with Saturn magically or spiritually, please feel free to join our panel. And I see someone, you're heavy. Good. We love we love heavy. We're all heavy. We can get really heavy sometimes. Or intellectual, one of the two. All right, Bren, we're going to say goodbyes. Any last minute anything before you say goodbye?
Not that I can think of, no, but I will say this. Saturn is best friend, not enemy. So stop calling him evil.
Yes. So, as always, for those here, thank you so much for the gifts. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the hearts. We got like quite a few hearts tonight, over 5,000. Thank you so much. And if you're not following Bren and I, hurry and click that follow before I end the live, because we would love to have you follow us. So, I see somebody say box. Yes, we do. Like, so and actually, if you've read the book, or if you know about the fifth chakra, you're welcome to jump up on panel next week. And then panel, on Thursday, it is open panel for Saturn. So, yep, you would get a box, on the panel. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. As always, merry meet, merry part, bright blessings, and namaste.